One of the securest ways to protect any kind of data is to encrypt it. Here in Windows 8, we still have access to something called BitLocker Encryption, which means we have the ability to select a drive and encrypt it. So only people with the password will be able to decrypt it and understand what's on the drive. We're going to take a look at it now. It's not one of the new Metro style apps here in Windows 8. So let's go to the top or bottom right corner. And when we see the charms, click Search. All we really need to type here is bit. And you'll notice under Settings, when we click Settings, we have access to BitLocker Drive Encryption. Manage BitLocker will take us to the same spot. So let's choose either one of those. And this opens up a window under System and Security of the control panel called BitLocker Drive Encryption. Here you're going to see a list of your drives, including the operating system drive. Mine is labeled C. Notice this area has been expanded, the arrow's pointing up, and that shows me access to turn on BitLocker, but only if I have administrator access. That's what this little icon means. Down below, it looks like I have a removable data drive also connected to this computer, and you can see BitLocker's turned off by default there as well. I can expand that section to get access to turning on BitLocker. Notice I don't need administrator access here. So just to save time, I'm going to go to Turn on BitLocker right here next to my removable data drive. Giving that a click opens up a separate window, and it just takes a moment to initialize the drive. You wouldn't want to remove the drive while the initialization is happening. That could corrupt the drive. There's a couple different ways to have an encrypted drive unlocked. You can use a password, which is the most popular fashion. And then down below, if you have a smart card reader and you use smart cards where you slip it into the reader, that's another great secure option, using a PIN to decrypt or unlock a drive that has BitLocker encryption turned on. Let's go to use a password. We'll enter our password. You should be using uppercase, lowercase letters, numbers, spaces, and symbols. You don't see what you're typing, so you do need to confirm that by re-entering it. And then click Next. If the two passwords match, you're now on to the next step, which is how do you want to back up your recovery key? If for some reason you forget a password or lose a smart card, there's a recovery key that will help you to get into the drive and set those up again. You can save it to your Microsoft account, save it to a file, and you can choose where that file is stored, or even print it out. The recovery key is not the password. It's actually a key that will allow you to get in and change the password, for example. So let's save ours to a file. When we click Save to File, you now get to browse to the location. By default, it's going to go to your documents, and notice the file name, BitLocker recovery key, and then you'll see a great big long string of numbers. Let's accept the defaults and click Save. And now we're ready to move on to the next step. We know that because it does say up here that the recovery key has been saved. And if we were to forget it, we can use that to gain access to the drive. So let's click Next. All right, now we get to choose how much of the drive to encrypt. This is an interesting feature. Notice that if you're on a new PC, for example, you won't have a lot of data stored on the drive. So in that case, encrypting the disk space that has been used only will be a lot faster, and it is one of the best options for new PCs and drives. Or we could just choose to encrypt an entire drive. It's been used for a long time, for example. There's a lot of files on there, deleted files that are hidden. All of it's encrypted. If we choose Encrypt Entire Drive, it will take longer, but everything is protected. Let's go to Encrypt Use Disk Space for the sake of time and click Next. All right, are you ready to encrypt the drive? You'll be able to unlock it using the password. And if you save the recovery key, that's your only way back in if you forget it. It might take a while depending on the size of your drive. Larger hard drives, of course, will take much longer than a small USB drive like I have attached. And until encryption is complete, you should never disconnect the drive. So your files will not be completed if you do that, and might even be corrupted. So let's start encrypting by clicking the Start Encrypting. You'll see a status bar go by. Now I'm using a very tiny drive. You can see that BitLocker encrypting is turned on, and now I have a number of different options over here. Also, down at the bottom, you can see what's happening. The process did take a little bit longer than what would have appeared on screen, but we can click this to see the message that it is indeed complete and close it up. There we go. So if we wanted to back up that recovery key, we could do that. Want to change the password, remove the password, or switch over to a smart card. All of that's possible from here. There's something called auto unlock. So depending on the user, You may not need to enter the password, and we can turn BitLocker off from here if we no longer want the drive to be encrypted. So I'm going to go to turn off BitLocker. Eventually, you may want to do that for an encrypted drive. You'll need to confirm by clicking the button again. And you can see it's decrypting the drive now. It'll take just as long as it did to encrypt the drive. And eventually, once it's completed, we'll be back where we started with a drive that's no longer encrypted. But it's a great feature. If there are drives and content on those drives that need to be protected, remember you have BitLocker encryption built into Windows here in Windows 8. We'll close this up and press the Windows key to go back to our start screen.